Hey, good morning. It's 10:10 a.m. It is June 16th, Monday morning, and I decided to come on here and make a quick video. Now, today I had to get up and go to the store early this morning. So, of course, because of the network, who inconvenienced me and prevented me from working. And then I had to deal with this entire runaround, which, prevented me from being able to pay my bills. And I had to leave, make it so that my car got repossessed. And so my little cart finally took a turn for the worse. I'm not able to use it at the moment. So I'm waiting to, hopefully either get a job or whatever. I need to have improved my financial situation. And of course, I'm suffering all of these issues because of my network. Okay, this network that I was forced to be in. Okay, so I do get the intuitive messages. I'm complaining about this. Is that yes, my rights are respected. Now, anyway, I got up this morning and I went to the store and I picked up a couple of items and I had to hit my on the way back home. And then I kept thinking, I know that I need to. I'm looking at my project, my fundraiser, as basically a full time job. However, today I am deciding to kind of take some time off of it to kind of brainstorm some more ideas. The reason why is because I did do some testers, okay? Testers like sent out a couple emails followed up with phone calls and this sort of stuff, okay? But I'm trying to figure out what is the best, most effective method. Now, I understand that there was a lot of people who were against me. Like I mentioned this, and this is one of the reasons why I talked about getting my name cleared with the Christian church, because I understand that it was Christianity that was creating these blacklists. Now, here in the state of California, blacklisting is illegal. I do believe that this also relates to other states. Like here in California, we have a law specifically addressing blacklisting. Specifically, okay. Now, I did talk about what it's like, or what talking about or sharing information across electronic devices, right? Going through different states of the United States, spreading gossip, slander, creating issues and obstacles for people through these means is illegal. Okay, so it's important, okay, that I communicated this issue, and and the reason why is because a lot of people for many years has taken it out on me because of what the church said. There's a lot of people who treat me as if I am not somebody who deserves to have any respect because of what the church said. And I have for many years suffered because of the church. Okay. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about my feelings about marriage in just a minute, because some people are thinking that I'm anti-marriage. I'm going to say this really quick before I go a little bit further into this. The answer is yes and no. Okay. Now, I don't want to get married myself. Okay. The reason why is because I'm 50 something years old. I no longer have the ability to produce children. Okay. And no, I'm not going to sit here and want to merge my DNA with somebody or something like that. I am not going to take responsibility for any offspring or make any offspring in my body. I do not have the drive or the desire to tend for a child. Okay, so therefore right there, if I was to be put in that situation, I would resent that kid. Okay, and it has nothing to do with me not being able to feel love for it. I probably would feel love for it. Okay, but I understand that there is something in me that is not willing to be a parent, and it has nothing to do with defiance. It's just something that is naturally in me. I am too old to do that. Also, I would, if the child would be I would resent that child. Okay, even though I'd love it. And therefore, it would show in my actions towards that child. Okay, so I'm not going to be put in that situation. This is me using common sense. Okay, so I do believe that when C.B. Berganza was alive, okay, one day I'm going to talk about this telephone call that I had many years ago before I realized I was C.B. Berganza. But do I believe that the person I was speaking to over the phone, even back in the 80s, recognized me as somebody who was C.B. Berganza? I'm starting to think so, okay? But anyway, I'll go into that some other time. But I do believe that C.B. Berganza was always surrounded by spies, always surrounded by two-faced people, always surrounded by people who wanted to get information gatherers, and this sort of stuff. I'm going to let you understand something. I understand that people are interested in me being with Elon Musk, okay? And I really think that Elon Musk is a very, very cute person, okay? But if Elon Musk is somebody who is being sent to me for the sake of somebody else, okay, to respond and report on me, then you know what? Then that can't work, okay? Because I'm not going to let somebody abuse me. I'm not going to let somebody abuse me. So, I don't sit here and think about, is Elon really, legit? Is he somebody who's decent? I'm not somebody who's been overly focused on whether or not Elon is going to betray me or not. I will tell you the filter that I have in my mind after all of these years of encountering these sort of honey traps, honey pots, or fake friends or whatever. I'm always in the back of my mind open to the idea that I can't really trust anybody. So even though I do think Elon Musk is very cute, he's extremely adorable, right? My feeling about him is that, I still need to get to know him. I'm not somebody who's just blindly thinking, oh, I'm going to, just hook up with Elon and he and I are going to be doing our, hanging out and doing crazy stuff together. I need to understand, look, dude, we are either friends or any of that, this sort of, let me tell you what Maria does, what she's buying, and what she does with her hair, and blah 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 blah. Let me tell you something. I am somebody who's true with their friendship, and I'm not going to deal with double agents. Okay, I am making very clear, distinct guidelines and decisions for my future. Okay, which means I purged out people that I didn't need to have in my life. Okay, like I knew that. What I thought this whole thing about the exploiting me with Rex Laverne, along with the two family thing, that right there, I can't tell you how disturbed that makes me. That literally sends shivers down my spine. You know why? Because we have two people who understood the plot. The plot was I was not the child of the Gordon family. Yet these people were collaborating and exploiting me, right? And so you can tell that this was not any sort of interest in who I was or anything like that. These people deliberately were out to exploit me and abuse me. Okay, and what made them think it was okay is because of the church. It's because of the church. Okay, and and like I said, for many years, because people are very ignorant. Okay, they have always believed that everything that they heard from the pulpit was coming directly from God. Okay, and this might blow a lot of people's mind because these people were allowed to be ignorant. These people were allowed themselves to be ignorant. They never bothered to question. What the church was able to do was create, underground networks and give these people perks that they really aren't really entitled to. Meaning, okay, we're going to go ahead and put you in this job. You could be a manager. You could be this. You could be that. As long as Maria Gordon isn't going to be in that position, but you can do it, even though you've done absolutely the shittiest job I've ever seen. You are the fault of so many people being homeless. You are the one who is responsible. The church is the people who are responsible for the homeless problems as well as what is going on when it comes to human trafficking. Do I believe that? Yes, I absolutely do. And the reason why I'm here making this video is because after I got home, I was separating my laundry, right? Because I did laundry in the last few days. And I was thinking, just collecting my thoughts because I've been getting a lot of messages relating to separating who's who. As a matter of fact, I'm going to name this video "Separating Who's Who." Okay. Now I understand that, and I talked about the whole Nazi thing, the whole Operation Paperclip. We have white nationalists, and there keeps being this message in my mind, like, okay, yes, all these people are very guilty of what happened. Okay, especially when it comes to the issue relating to burden babies. Okay, but I have to say that the people of Operation Paperclip meeting were all pretty much my fans. Now, I understand when it comes to Nazis throughout my entire life, and I do believe this was the same thing with C.B. Braganza. Like I said, there are some white people who have a love-hate relationship with me. Just like the Austrian lady who sat there and stared at me and was saying, "Oh, Maria, you're great, right? You're great." They think that I'm superhuman, and they admire me, but at the same time they like to create these little secret competitions that undermine my ability to survive. Okay, and this is something, it's wrong. Okay, me being able to take care of my life, okay, meaning keeping things in order, purchasing a vehicle, getting new furniture, especially after I've had, old furniture for a very long time. Just like, the situation that I talked about my father who went into a panic attack because after 10 years, he needed to buy a new family car. And then we had people who were sitting here threatening him the entire time, okay? So I need to understand who's who. All right, I need to understand who's who, and why I need to understand who's who is a spiritual message that constantly keeps pounding in my mind. It keeps pounding in my mind. It's like, who's who? Who did all of this? Like, and I understand it keeps coming up with the church, like the church, the church, the church, the church. Okay, I understand Operation Paperclip, created me. Okay, but who was the one who harassed me? Who was the ones who were setting up unfair situations for me? Who were the ones who were blacklisting me, bullying me, and actually creating an unfair narrative about me? It was the church. And when I say church, I'm referring to the cult, meaning the big group of people that I thought were separate, right, because of doctrinal reasons, right, thinking that they all had their their form of the truth. And some of these people were pointing at each other, saying, this person's a liar. They're not a good Christian. Catholics over here, they acknowledge Mary. We don't. They're going to hell. Blah 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 blah. Jehovah's Witnesses referring to everybody else as Babylon the Great, but I've come to find out that these people are working for the same demonic force. Okay, so I must have been, like I said, I must have been born here for a reason. And I'm thinking about, the whole concept of a savior, the Messiah, and I'm thinking about the issue relating to Jesus. Now, like a kid, I said a couple of days ago, I was talking about, me looking at the situation of how the Bible was written. Okay, and a lot of people come up with all kinds of ways to interpret the Bible. Like you've heard of the Bible Code. Some of you guys may have heard about the Bible Code. Talking about, now I'm starting to look at it more from the standpoint of bloodlines, because a lot of times in churches, some of their Bible lessons, they're just talking about, maybe they'll talk about, figures in the Bible, right, or stories in the Bible, right, but you're not really putting two and two together and connecting it. When I was younger, studying with Jehovah's Witnesses, I was studying it based off of, we had the Bible study aids, and then, as I decided, I don't think that's a really good idea to study the Bible based off of this Bible study aid. Let me just look at it and read it myself, without somebody trying to interpret. And I would say that if everybody was to do that, they would all come up with some sort of different conclusion. Okay, some people would agree on some things, and there's still going to be some people who are going to disagree on other things. But the Bible, I am starting to see it as me as being a very significant person within these scriptures. I really do think so. Okay, or people, not just me, but also my father, and possibly people who were related to me within my offspring. And I do understand that when it comes to different societies, we tend to want to see heroes that look like us. I think this is something very normal. Like, I've actually seen old fairy tales, where most people think of Snow White as, what we've seen from the Disney movie, right? But there are old fairy tales, from Europe that show Snow White with blonde hair, right? But it's how we see ourselves. We want to project ourselves into greatness. So therefore, these heroes can only be accepted if they look like us. Okay. Now, I'm not going to argue the issue as to whether people are going to look at me as the modern day Jesus or not. But what my point is that, when it comes to people who claim to love Jesus, I'm going to say that the majority of people who claim to be Christian actually don't. Because Christianity to me is, in their minds, or how I've seen the behavior of Christians be, how the way that they live and stuff, it seems as though a lot of these people are manipulated, or they're ignorant, or whatever. It has nothing to do with really appreciating what a savior would do for you. The thing is that, some people wanted this white man to be Jesus Christ, to the Jesus. They wanted to accept only this white person as their savior. Okay. And so this is who they worship, and this is whatever. Okay. And like I said, I've never been somebody who argued about, who's who, or, are black people great or white people great. I have never gotten into this. Okay. And the reason why it must have something to do with my past life, being from the fact that I am not from this earth. I don't have the petty little issues that people have. You know what I mean? I don't need to sit here and try to be like, oh, I need to one up these people, and I'm going to somehow attribute everything to my race. I'm not into that. It doesn't matter to me. Okay. So I think throughout history, I have been a spirit being, a spirit person that people wanted to identify in their culture. This is one of the reasons why there's this issue about, the origins of King Solomon. Was he a Jew? Was he actually, Egyptian? No, I think I was kind of both. In cultural ways, I must have absorbed, the ways of King David, but at the same time, I was an Egyptian at the same, yeah, on the same. So I was like half and half in some ways. You know what I mean? Some of the customs I probably felt uncomfortable doing because I knew who I really was. You know what I mean? I was an Egyptian person, and see, Egyptians tend to be very, okay, we were very elegant. I would say that we are elegant, but what makes the Egyptians stand out is the fact that we're advanced. We're advanced, okay? And so people wanted this sort of stuff. And so I think that, of course, people like Operation Paperclip and that sort of stuff, of course, they're going to take an interest in that because they want to improve their race. I'm not holding that against them, okay? But I'm going to say that where did I get most of the hatred from? Where did I get the hatred from? Where did the hatred come from? Where did it originate? It originated with the church. It originated with the church, okay? Because I will tell you, this is how it was so widespread before the advent of the internet. Now, I know that people have been communicating via computer possibly even longer than, the big boom of when people started using it. I'm talking about the days of AOL and stuff like that. A lot of things that don't get introduced to the main population until years later, until they feel like they perfected or whatever. Okay. So I understand, people knew who my father was when I was growing up. I'm starting to understand this. They knew who my father was and they knew who I was. So this is how other people responded to me based on what was, believed in the church. And don't get me wrong, okay? I'm somebody, when it comes to dealing with an argument or trying to resolve issues, I have to seriously, objectively, okay, look at both sides of the issue. Trying to understand. I have to be fair. I have to understand where and why did they feel this way. I would say that race did fuel a lot of it. Okay, race fueled a lot of it, and the reason why is because part of it is because people really want to be able to see a savior that looks like them. Okay, so this is one of the reasons why Rex Laverne wanted to blacklist me. What do you call it? Blacklist me. He wanted to shadow ban me. He wanted me to be in a box. He wanted to isolate me, and this is what he did, and it was wrong. Okay, I do believe that isolation has a lot of psychological effects. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and I fully get that. Okay, I think throughout life there's always people who are not going to be compatible, but at the same time, this is a work issue. Okay, when it comes to work, no, I sit down in an office. Don't get me wrong. I prefer my privacy too, and I prefer to work alone. I really do. But I didn't like all the obvious forms of isolation that was going on around me. It's abusive. It's abusive. Okay. Now, I am a spirit being. I'm a spirit being, meaning in a body. Meaning, this is one of the reasons why cloning was kind of like, ooh, and people from the church were uncomfortable about it. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a little bizarre too. But like I said, there's Jehovah's Witnesses, right? Who never really mentioned, they don't talk about clones in the Watchtower Drag Society. But let's get real here. How else could that happen? How else could it happen? Okay. Talking about raising the dead and people who immortals. People look at me as an immortal. Why? Because I've been cloned bunches of times. Okay. And I personally don't think that had I caught on and fully understood that this was cloning and stuff like that, I would have said, okay, well, that's enough. No, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Okay. And the reason why is, but I will tell you one of the reasons why they wanted me to be here is because I have pulled the weight of, it seems like, a lot of the things that go on in society for a long time just by them observing me. Okay. And I inspire a lot of people. And without me, this sounds bizarre, okay, but a lot of things that could not actually function without me because I'm somebody who is a creator. So I have been stolen from my entire life. Like, this is one of the reasons why it's okay for, what's that guy's name? Steve Murray, right? Who went to the Science of Mind church, right? When you really get down to the root of it, where did all of these doctrines come from? They came from me. They came from me. Okay. So I'm somebody who deserves more. Okay. Sure. I'm not expecting, I should be a millionaire. I should be a billionaire when you think about it. Okay. But I am always being messed with by the church. Okay. And yet the church wants to sit here and allow people who are incompetent to take jobs from me, and then they want to sit here and try to rub that sort of shit in my face, which is one of the reasons why I encountered that one troll looking woman when I went over to that massage company to apply for a job here in Bakersfield. Okay, the reason why she was doing that, she felt entitled to rub things in my face, knowing good and well that I was marked for death. Let me ask you something. What kind of a person would do that? A demon. Yes, I'm going to say it. I do believe that Christianity, the entire time, is nothing more than a what do you call it? A demonic uh, organization. And that doesn't mean it can't change. Redirect himself. Recognize the congregation, recognize their mistake or whatever. But do I believe Christianity is demonic? I had my suspicions that Christianity was demonic a long time ago. Okay, just by me watching some of these televangelists that I remember watching when I was a kid. Okay, I remember saying I would not want to be a part of that religion. I don't want any of that, but I'm going to sit here and watch these people anyway. I remember the religious scandals that took place back in the 80s. I paid attention to that sort of stuff. And this is how I decided to shape my life. I wanted my life to be based on fact. Okay, not based on what somebody is trying to force down my throat. Okay. Now, I understand, I want to talk a little bit more about marriage. I'm going to bounce back a little bit talking about marriage. No, it's not that I don't believe that people should not procreate. I do believe they should, but they should be doing so in a smart manner, meaning that they should be able to, sure, they should make assessments of what their prospective partner has. My criteria would be, okay, I want to make sure that these people are in good health. Why? Because I want to produce offspring that's not going to have any problems. Okay, so obviously I'm going to eliminate somebody who, I want people who are vibrant and in good health. Okay, because why? I want to produce good offspring. All right. I also want to have somebody who is elegant, and I want somebody who enjoys the sort of things that I do. That's a compatibility. Okay, I would have an idea of how I'm going to raise my family. Okay, and I would be raising my family based off the preferences, okay, and a moral standard, of course, and the preferences of both me and my husband, not by how everyone else is going to tell me how to live. Okay, I'm not going to be anybody's slave. Okay, but yet we had the church who was basically creating these little, what do you call it? Kingdom spouses, sending people spouses, and then tricking people into these sort of relationships, and then punishing them if they need to get out. Okay. And that's my personal feeling. And it's also my personal experience by watching other people suffer under this institution that we call Christianity, who has ruined several people's lives, including mine. Now, like I said, I get it. I fully recognize from their standpoint, what would I seem like and other clones seem like. Okay. I do understand it is a very strange thing. Okay. But at the same time, okay, it is a very possible thing. And like I said, I personally think everything in my situation about the whole cloning thing, to me, it's very dark. It's very dark. It's very sinister. I'm just not cool with it. Okay. But can it be used for something good? I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm talking a little bit about this in my newsletter. I don't want to give away too much. But, like I said, Charles C. Russell wanted to create this and bring back certain people who formulated the early Jehovah's Witnesses thought that this was their way of bringing back the new earth. Okay, and the new earth is supposed to be a place where people can feel happier, have their desires, satisfied. I understand that that's not idealistic. I mean, an ideal thing or realistic thing in every situation. Okay, but there's certain things that can be reduced, such as the slavery that is going on. The slavery. I'm not telling churches what to do, but I am telling people who go to church, you should set higher standards for your church leaders. Okay. And you should be able to see the results within your life if your church is really on the right path. Okay. If your church is on the right path, can you say that I am a fulfilled person? Can you say that you are a fulfilled person? If you can't say that you're a fulfilled person, then I'm going to say you're on the wrong track. Okay, now I do get the intuitive message that a lot of people realize that the burden baby thing was wrong. Yeah, it was wrong. It was wrong. Okay, because what you did was you victimized someone who is a completely innocent person. And, my feeling about cloning is, in this situation, if people can't raise clones or just, orphans in general, okay, but especially clones, okay, if clones cannot be provided a decent environment, okay, then obviously it shouldn't be done. It should not be done. Okay, unless of course you're going to guarantee. And really, when I think about bringing people into the earth, period, like I see a lot of people who are very irresponsible with their kids. Maybe they didn't mean to become irresponsible parents. Maybe when they were younger, they had all kinds of visions of, being a good parent, having a good family, and all that sort of stuff. But maybe somehow down the road, things just got dark and twisted. And what got dark and twisted was, maybe being a slave to the church. You know what I mean? Because what I'm going to tell you right now, all my problems, when I think about it, all my problems, all my sister Tanya's problems, right? Really, when you really look at it, where does all this stuff come from? The church. My sister had mental problems because of the church. Okay, and I know the church, used to be very down against things like psychology. You know why? Because when people started thinking about their quality of their life, when they started thinking about their feelings, okay, then it just got becoming ridiculous with people talking about they bring in Christian counselors, and all that's meant to do is sitting here to twist your brain back so you go right back to that church and then they try to glorify it like it's something righteous to sit here and be that goddamn miserable. You know what I mean? No, I don't have any respect for the goddamn church. I don't. Not a bit. Not a bit. Okay? And as a matter of fact, I'm a little triggered by them, to be honest with you. Today I found myself at Walmart and I saw a Mormon girl, right? And I immediately started getting angry. Immediately started getting angry. And the thing is, I don't think that she was trying to wish me any harm or anything like that. But you know why I feel so much anger toward this person? Because I understand that there was one time, okay, because this girl's old enough to be in this community for a long period of time, right? But I know probably 3 years ago, she was sitting here plotting my death with a smile on her face. Okay? Yeah, it's that deep, okay? So this is one of the reasons why I'm doing the best I can to get out of this community. Okay? What else do I want to talk about? So I did get the intuitive message that yes, my son can get his own apartment. Okay. And I should be able to make money to do that if I needed to. Like if I needed to support my son because he needs his assistance, I'm his parent, okay? And I understand my son is my own responsibility until he's 18 years old, okay? But because I love my son, I'm not somebody who, I understand how fucked up the world is, okay? So no, I'm not going to just turn a blind eye if my son has to go out and face it. Okay, because I understand how wicked the world is. Okay, so he needs to understand, and everybody should know that yes, I'm here for his. He always has a place to come if he needs it. Of course, that's beyond question. But really, for him to have the best quality of life, he should be on his own. I do get the intuitive message that everything that I have felt through all the pain through this tragedy, there's a lot of people who are dealing with that sort of pain right now. And you know what? It's a transfer of pain, and it's beyond me saying I told you so or trying to rub it in somebody's face. That's not my issue. My issue is that I'm making this video today mainly because I'm trying to calm myself down. At 3 o'clock, somewhere between 3 and 5, I'm going to have this appointment with somebody from the EDD office. Okay, you know how tired I am of talking to these sort of people. You know what I mean? Because I know that if I would have never been a victim of their stupid plan, okay, then I would not be having to have anything to do with the EDD. Okay. And I feel like all these little so-called professionals are just more spies or people coming from the church, or they're going to sit here and get together with their committee to decide my fate. No, it's based off a certain measurement or whatever, but no, it's always got to be some church in government, in government doings. And I get tired of it. Okay. I get tired of it. What else do I want to say? So when it comes to marriage, I believe in compatibility. I believe in compatibility. Okay. So it's not so much that I have an issue with people wanting to have families. I'm saying that people should have families in a different way. I would. Okay. And so, like I said, I know that nobody's pressuring me to get married, but I do get this intuitive message, this strong intuitive message that people approve of me and me having a relationship with Elon Musk. Okay, I would like to date Elon if he's interested in dating. I think we should date. That's cool. You know what I mean? He wants to hang out for the rest of the summer. Hey, whatever. That's cool too. You know what I mean? Whatever he wants to do. If he wants to do something crazy like hang out and just like whatever, cool. All right. Now, whether I end up marrying the dude, I don't know. But you know what? I'm not going to sit here and let other people force me into making that decision. You know what I mean? And one thing is for sure, I'm not going to sit here and put up with somebody being a fucking spy. Now, I personally don't believe that Elon has really ever experienced anybody to be a true friend to him. Meaning, because I understand how exploitative just about everybody is, okay? But I will tell you, I would be the best friend that Elon could possibly ever have. You know what I mean? Because I have that kind of quality about me. Okay. I'm not somebody who, feels like I need to be a double agent or feel like I need to play, straddle the fence, meaning like I'm going to pretend to be somebody's this and then I'm going to be an informant on that way. I understand what loyalty is and nobody has to tell me how to do that. Okay, I do get the intuitive message that there are people here in Bakersfield that are willing to fund my project. Right now, I am not interested in communicating with Bakersfield today. Tomorrow, I have to hit the rest of California first, and I will deal with Bakersfield later. Right now, I'm trying to figure out, my different techniques of how to communicate. Right. So I know I can't use platforms like Ko-fi, right, and Patreon because I will tell you these companies are involved in genocide just like the Christian church was. So yes, and I get the intuitive message, as I said, that my old perps are, who are against me are miserable and their lives are destroyed. And there is no hope for recovery for these people. Okay, now I don't know if Patreon is a part of all of that. I don't know. Okay, but this intuitive message is coming to my mind. And you know what? Who they have to blame? Themselves. And you know but the root of it, where the root of it comes from? The church. The church. The church, and see, this is what makes their Sunday meetings interesting. This is what makes their affiliation so exciting. They like to get together and bloodline target people, just like they did about poor lady from Monster. They love plowing these people down. Okay, they love plowing them down, and it's like, I'm so glad that I understood that I can't trust people. Okay. And no, I'm not all opening just to trust myself to Elon Musk. I have to be very careful with everyone, even though, I feel like, I want to get to know him. Okay. And it's only natural. Like he should be a little bit uncomfortable around me and I should be a little bit uncomfortable around him because I do believe that Elon Musk has been abused several times in his life and he probably feels that way about a lot of people. Okay. Just because you see people on the screen or whatever does not mean that their lives are all rosy and great. Okay, there's a lot of people who deal with all forms of abuse, and it seems like people like me, all we know are people who are abusers. We only know abusers. Okay, so I'm aware of that, and he may have been conditioned. I'm not saying he is or he isn't. Okay, but he may be conditioned. Okay, because he's only been around certain personality types to behave in a certain way. He may even have certain aggressions that he's not even aware of that he could bring in our relationship, and then it could have some sort of issue. So I'm going to take my time to get to know Elon, and I'm going to get to know him well, the best way I possibly can. So I'm trying to, speed things up. Let's get the summer thing moving. Okay. I want to get summer moving and, spend some time with Elon, spend the summer with Elon and see how things go. That's what I want to do. You know what I mean? And I even thought, it'd be kind of cool if, I would even bring him into one of my projects because I thought, okay, this is kind of cool because, I was thinking about like, if I could take this seminar thing, further, if that's possible. See, right now I have to keep my options open. Okay, this is my strategy plan, which I have the right to have. Now, maybe some other people wouldn't. There's a lot of women my age, they'd be like, I can't do what she needs to do. So, I'm just going to fold and I'm just going to, either go homeless or I'm going to go, partner with somebody who's going to beat me or whatever. That's your choice. Okay. But I'm a fighter. Okay. I had no choice but to fight. Okay. Because I had every person in the United States and abroad hate my guts because of who? The church. The church. Okay, so I have to sit here and plan my life. I have to sit here and protect myself. Okay, so yes, this is my goal. So there's certain things that I am willing to do. I'm willing to, expand and operate as Gordon's occupational engineering and the services. And I did create a service what do you call it, like a brochure. I wanted it to be a threefold brochure, but because I'm not printing any of these, especially since I have to save money because these people have left me in the state of destitution, these fucking assholes, right? But anyway, I only made it a few pages long, okay? And it's basically me talking about the different services that I'm providing, okay? And yes, I'm willing to do temporary work. If I have to work here temporarily in Bakersfield until, I can get things settled or however this works, okay, I have to do something. I cannot stay in this state, okay? And it's wrong for me to. I should have never had to have dealt with something like this in the first place. And yes, I'm angry. And the message that I'm getting right now is that my rights are respected. See, people want to create blockages for other people, okay? And they normalize it. This is what I'm talking about. They normalize their criminal behavior. I'm going to say this right here in Bakersfield, and I hope that it rings throughout the state of California and the United States as well, okay? Because this sort of behavior is illegal, okay? If somebody over the age of 18 has somebody blocking them, and yes, the message I'm getting right now is that me and my father are best friends. Okay, you know why? Because there's a lot of people who do not agree with me talking about human trafficking. You know why? Because the only way that they're able to survive is by exploiting other people. You're the people I want off the face of this damn earth. It's you who I want off the face of the earth. I want people who exploit other people and abuse other people for some form of living. What I'm talking about is the overly dependent. People who don't have any ability to work for themselves, or they want to sit here and use other people for their resources and then exploit them to the point of where I am right now. You people, I want off the face of this earth. I want you gone. I want people who sit there and abuse their kids or people who take in foster kids and use them for their money. Yeah, I want you gone. Okay? I want the overly dependent and the overly opportunist off the face of this earth, and rightfully so. Okay? And I do not feel bad about it. Okay? I don't feel bad about it at all. What else? There are a lot of people who speak well of me, and then there's a lot of people who feel like they have to speak well of me. Meaning like it's become a taboo to talk about Maria. First of all, you can say whatever you want to say, but by you saying something negative about me, we all know why you'd be saying it. Okay? You would have absolutely no reason to do so. Okay, you would only come off to being an asshole. So yes, there are some people who really, they want to bite, their finger. They want to rage. They want to sit here because they've been used to they're used to the old narrative. They're used to how they enjoyed being a part of their church. How the church affiliation was filling them with all kinds of negative stuff about me. They were all riled up and they were living for bullying me. Okay, so these demonic people are disappointed. Okay, that's too bad. Okay, but I will tell you what the church did was it encouraged a lot of abusive behavior. Okay, it did a terrible disservice to mankind. Yes, I do. I am very grateful that I do have a spirit traveler, and I understand that there's a lot of people who may feel resentful towards me talking about the moral reset. And I get a lot of messages that there's a lot of people who are grateful that there is. Okay, reason why is because people who want to protect their rights and value their rights. Okay, the only people who have an issue with it are the people who are corrupt. Basically, okay, the corrupt people have an issue with it. I do get the feeling that there's a lot of people who are looking forward to reading my third quarter newsletter. Right now, I'm up to 22 pages on my newsletter. Okay, I have a lot of stuff I want to talk about. Okay, and a lot of it is, some people think I'm spending most of this time, blathering and bitching about the church. Okay, a little bit, but I'm really right here trying to get down to the root of the problem, and I am talking about a lot of people's self-hatred issues. Okay, I am also talking about the church as well. Okay, and like I said, the churches. When I say churches, I'm referring to all of these different denominations. The churches. I always knew something was wrong with you. Like, I forgot the scripture, but it's like, you would know them by the fruit. You would know them by the fruits that they produce, or something like that. It's a scripture. I can't. And I'm going to say that's true. I'm going to say that I've met a lot of abusers. I've met a lot of abusers and people who are very filled with bloodlust. That's what I'm going to call it. People who are filled with bloodlust, and what it is suppressed rage. You know why they feel this suppressed rage? Because they can't. Their world is filled with a bunch of I can'ts. There is no freedom. There is no sense of joy. There is nothing to offer when it comes to being one of these church mindless fools. Okay, their lives to me are ruined. And so anytime they see somebody who takes care of themselves, who has a confident demeanor, they want to attack it. You know why? Because the church has told them to do this. Okay? I've done nothing wrong. I am an innocent child of God. And everybody knows it. So this is one of the reasons why there are some of these demons that are, lingering around. And the reason I wouldn't have to worry about lingering demons, right? If I didn't have not had been bullied by the church. Okay, so the church, what they did, they allowed me to be exposed to people who could harm me. They've allowed me to have problems being able to find a job because of their little blacklisting or condoning it, their ops, their operations, their vigilantes and whatever. And like I said, I did talk to President Trump about this issue by my video. Okay, and yes, it is important. Okay, things need to operate based on how it's supposed to operate, not based on some sort of bias. Because basically, what the church have been doing has been impoverishing people here in the United States and throwing them out in the streets. And who do I blame? I blame the church. I blame the church. These people that you drive by all the time who've been thrown out, these people didn't do anything wrong. Okay, and if the church is telling you to ignore these people, I'm going to tell you what, you guys are nothing more than controlled demonic people. And I got the intuitive message about me being acknowledged of my Egyptian bloodline. Okay, like I said, throughout my entire life, when it came to race, I was nothing but humble. I was raised to believe that I was the daughter of my grandfather was a sharecropper, and that my father was associated with all that, and I was happy just to be that. And I remember the whole issue because I'm going to tell you, black people, every time, I was raised in a white environment, right? But when I needed to get my hair done, I was sent to black beauticians. There was a black beautician on Avenue I when I was a kid. And my father used to go to Pear Blossom because there was a black community in Pear Blossom. It was Pear Blossom, or was it? No, it doesn't matter. Anyway, he would get his hair cut there. And every time we were around other black people, they would sit here and talk about this one subject, this one topic. It seemed like every time it was either getting my hair done or going with my dad to get his hair cut. The same thing. Black people were Egyptians. Jacks are Egyptians. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. And I used to think, man, I don't understand why this is such an issue. I mean, to me, it was like that was a long time ago. That was a long time ago. And, I personally, as an individualist, which I've always identified as individualist, I believe that it was my responsibility to be great, regardless of who or what I've seen before or who accomplished this first or whatever. If I had internal drive, and therefore I don't care if I see an example of somebody being able to accomplish something or not. I want to do it. I'm going to do it. So, I was never hung up on the whole Egyptian thing. I've come to find out that I am Egyptian. Okay, now I'm going to tell you what. Does that make me feel good? Yeah, I'm very happy to be Egyptian. I actually have an ankh on my wall, and there's times where I've actually worn it. Okay, I've come to understand who I am. I am the clone of King Solomon. The reincarnation, you could go say. But, even though it's King Solomon, to me, I've seen visuals of C.B. Braganza, and I look at this man, and I'm like, dude, I love C.B. Braganza. I love C.B. Braganza. I love who he was. I can feel him inside of me. You know what I mean? I don't know what this man had to go through, but I'm pretty sure he had to go through the same kind of crap I did. Okay, and I feel for this man. And the reason why I think he's cool is because he was photographed in his turban, and I know it must have pissed people off, but this man was strong and steadfast about saying, you know what, this is who I am, and that's how it's going to be. Okay? He knew what soil he was on. He always knew what soil he was on. He was on American soil, so you could take that somewhere else. You can take your religion somewhere else. If you can't be peaceful, then take it somewhere else. Okay? You have been, I'm sorry to just sit here and spout off at the churches, but I'm emotional this morning. And you know what caused it? Is because I had to see that Mormon girl. And I don't really get any negative feelings from her. I didn't get any negative feelings from her. It's just that, you know what? I understand that it's religion that was the root of everything that has happened to me. Okay, and and a lot of people are afraid to say it, but deep down inside, they are thinking about it, and they know it's true too. They're thinking about their life, like, oh yeah, I could have had something better. Yeah, yeah, could have been. See, the church, hopefully, people are going to get together and talk about what needs to be changed in the church. Okay, and hopefully, there's going to be leaders in the church who are going to be able to, support their flock accordingly. Okay, because what ended up happening is chaos. This is, and I've been thinking, how many resets have we had throughout the years? I know that part of the whole repopulation was to try to like create a different narrative. This is why people were thrown in like, mental institutions who were catching on, right? It's been crazy. Okay, I'm going to tell you, it's crazy. But you know what? Why people feel like, I think a lot of times people feel like they need to do resets is because the world gets to be so corrupt. You know what I mean? And then they have to start all over again. And the reason why is because people need to have it very clear what is acceptable and what is not. I understand we have things like the Bible, and don't get me wrong, okay? I appreciate the Bible for what it is and how I see what it is, and it's my right to have my own interpretation. I believe that the Bible is a record of different accounts in different time periods as well, okay? Like I mentioned, we went from polygamy to having Jesus talk about, having one spouse. I do believe it's because throughout the time and the ages, more knowledge had been acquired. Okay, maybe him saying that it was only one spouse was to bring some sort of respect in some way, maybe to feminine. Because I will tell you, most women probably do not like the idea of their husbands being with multiple people. Okay, so perhaps maybe I don't know what he was thinking at the time. He was probably thinking, okay, women probably feel very threatened by having multiple sister wives or whatever. So maybe that was a way of being more progressive in saying, okay, well, this is how it is. If I am the Messiah, which I personally believe that I am, okay, and this is me in no way overstepping people who want to believe in Jesus. I will tell you what, if Jesus came out of the sky right now, I would have him assist me in moving in this new world order. That's exactly what I would do. I would say, you know what, can I give you the script? Maybe you could like add some graphics or something. I would be his right hand man and vice versa. But something tells me that I have always been the Messiah, and there has been a whitewash cover up. Okay. There has been some sort of whitewash cover up. And I'm not trying to make this a racial issue. What I'm saying is that, I feel as though that what needs to be done are clear guidelines on what is acceptable relating to what the law. I can't tell people how are they supposed to see the supernatural. I can't tell somebody that. Okay, and this is one of the reasons why I love this country so much, because they understood that. Okay, that's like you're getting too deep embedded into somebody's psyche. You're like, that's too much control. That's too much control. Okay, when I believe when we come to God, it's based off our free will, not because somebody's beating it over your head. Okay, this is one of the reasons why some prayers are, recited, and some people just, they get off to themselves and they just pour themselves out to the divine. Whatever is on the top of their head, because that's the most sincere form of prayer. You know what I mean? And where am I going with all this? What I'm saying is Christianity had it wrong all along. Meaning that I believe that they've done a lot of damage to the lives of the people. They got greedy, and maybe when they all started off, when they started off, okay, maybe they had sincere intentions. I believe that there's a lot of people throughout history that may have had good intentions and then just veered off because they had too much power, they had too much control, and they didn't know how to deal with it. And I think one of the people that I mentioned before, like as an example, is the guy from. The guy who made people drink Kool-Aid, what was his name? I can't think. Jim Jones. Jim Jones, okay? And one of the reasons why people like Jim Jones is because Jim Jones had an integrated congregation. Black people thought he was great because they felt like they were welcomed, okay? And I will tell you, churches for many years were very, very segregated. So it was like Jim Jones was like accepting of everyone. This was something that appealed to a lot of people. They felt included. Okay, but see, their need to be included was what led them to their demise. Okay, they need to stop thinking about what makes me feel good all the time. Okay, and I believe that the message that I have should make people feel good. It should make people empowered. But I speak things that are positive, not to deceive them. I'm telling people what's good for them. Okay, I have no intention of pulling any string or anything like that. You see, I have no money, right? You see this, right? So I'm basically saying is that what I'm telling you is the truth. Okay, and what churches don't provide is the truth. Okay, they give people a different narrative and they force people to accept that narrative. And anybody who doesn't want it is highly problematic to them. Okay, and so it's been this way for a long time. Well, you know what? According to scripture, that whole structure was supposed to be destroyed, and I believe that I must be inadvertently here to destroy it. So whether you guys choose to continue to operate or not, that's your choice, okay? But one thing needs to be very clear. People are very unhappy with the way things have been in the church, okay? And they trickle it down into their actions and their behavior. And really, like I said, I'm not telling you to shut your doors. I'm just saying is I deserve justice, and it's the way that it is, okay? You had for years, the whole church agenda was to kill me. Okay, but really, if you think about it, the scriptures, I'm supposed to kill you, not meaning killing you like literally taking you off the earth. Some of you guys will be off the earth, and some of you guys have already left off the earth. I'm saying is that people need to be break free from this religious abuse. Okay, and like I said, some of you guys may have had the best intentions when you went into the ministry. That's a possibility. Like I said, people can get big headed. Jim Jones got big headed. He got real big headed. You know what I mean? And then it ended up in tragedy. You know, I don't believe Tammy Faye Bakker was that bad of a person. I know people painted her out to be a bad person. I thought she probably did have a sincere interest in serving God at one time. But people can get greedy. You know what I mean? You're only human, right? And so in this case, I think the bloodlust, yes, I talk about dark psychology, okay? And I'm going to talk about bloodlust in, I'm not going to talk about bloodlust in the moral reset, but I do believe that there is a dark side of human nature. And because most psychologists, they don't ever want to talk about those sort of things. It's all feel good, and then they want to give you, not psychologists, but what are those people who are able to give you prescription drugs or whatever? They don't get down to the deep. They refuse to look at the elephant in the room, you know, what they call it, the elephant in the living room. Okay, bandage it up, give you some, you know, medication or whatever, when the truth is that you've been duped, and then everything in your life is a lie and a disappointment, and that's it. That's the bare bottom line. Okay, because they dare not ever speak against the church, because the church is the one who's paying their money. The church is the one who's agreeing to sit here telling people, oh, you're crazy, or, you know, or whatever, or gaslighting, or being paid to gaslight people. Yes, the church. The church is supposed to uphold what is holy, meaning to speak the truth. For many years, the church has done nothing but lied. So anyway, I'm getting messages. There's a lot of people who are upset by what I'm saying. Hey, I'm not saying a lot of people are arguing among themselves, right? And that's fine. They can argue among themselves, okay? But here's the end result of that. I still need to move. Okay? I still need to get my life together. Okay? So here's the thing. I'm either going to work temporarily as a job here in Bakersfield, okay? I'm still working my my fundraiser to get out of this community. And my goal is to move to Lancaster, okay? So I don't want any more obstructions from these people. I don't want any more issues from these people. I don't want to hear, and I get the intuitive message that it's because my father's apparition is on camera. Let me tell you something. I'm aware of this, okay? And I also am aware that he is my guardian. Meaning, like, people are going to protect me. I deserve protection. Okay? Like I said, I'm considered royalty, of royal blood, because of my origins, all right? So you see, you know, other lines of royal families, they have their guards and stuff like that. And I'm not saying I'm deserving of that, okay? But no one tried to protect me. As a matter of fact, the church made me an open target and promoted the hatred of me. So they are responsible for all the problems that I'm experiencing. Okay, and so I'm showing accountability when I shouldn't even have to. The churches should be bending over backwards serving me, meaning they should be trying to do what they can to cough up the money to give me what I rightfully deserve. But once again, I'm the one. So let this be a lesson to you. Be an upstanding person. Strive to be an upstanding person. Do things for yourself. Be self-sufficient. Do not cause harm to other people. Part of my moral issue of my moral research that I'm talking about is instilling principles into your children. Being able to say that raise your children to say, hey, you know, I did not neglect you. Okay. The reason why these people are doing what they're doing is because of, number one, neglect, because they didn't have good parents, and also ignorance, and of course arrogance. This combination is obviously deadly. Okay, but yes, I mean, giving the example of, like, for example, a kid who I used to play baseball with my brother and sisters out in my quote unquote fake family in the backyard, right? But we used to use a little aluminum ball. We would get a bunch of aluminum foil and use. We had a regular ball, but the reason why we couldn't play regular baseball in the backyard is because it could hit a window, right? So I use the damaging somebody's window as an example. If a child damages somebody's window, number one, of course, the parent is going to be responsible for the repair of that window. But what the child needs to understand is that, by damaging a window, you cause somebody a hardship. Giving the example of perhaps maybe a woman is elderly, okay, and her husband just died, and she does not have the funds to replace that window. Now you cause that person hardship. Now, I understand it's an accident, but really, what can you do to try to compensate for that? If you don't have any money, can you sit here and offer her some other sort of service? Because you harmed her. You harmed this person. Okay? Taking responsibility for the things that you do. This is what I'm talking about. And you know what? I don't sit here and do this to other people. I don't do this to other people. I'm somebody who's like, okay, I need to take care of this. I need to take care. I have never leaned on anyone, and I certainly never enslaved anybody. Okay? But this system has got to change. And this is probably why I'm here. What else? I think that's it. I'm going to wrap this up for now. Yeah, I'm taking my day off. I'm re-strategizing and coming up with other plans. But I am going to be going back to my script. I have, like I said, I'm dreading talking to the EDD. And like I said, I don't think that this person has any, I don't know if it's a girl or a guy, or I don't know who they assigned to my case. But I will tell you, I'm tired of having to deal with people on the outside. I'm tired of having to deal with them because, I want to mention something really quick. When it comes to me finding other employment, I understand that people are going to, my father's apparition is most likely going to be hanging out with me. Okay, so I don't have a problem with people filming me at my work location. I'm just saying is, if it's going to be a camera, it doesn't need to be here. It could be somewhere like on the side or something. I get it. I'm a supernatural case. It would be stupid to think that people are just going to be like, let's just ignore the apparition. I know, I understand it. It's a part of who I am. It's a part of my identity. It's actually very cool to actually witness. I wish I could see it myself, okay? So I don't have a problem with getting hired and having somebody surveil me for that purpose. For that purpose, okay? But like I said, it does not, the camera should not be sitting here in my face, blah, 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 blah. I don't, it should be in a nice area where it's not like, where I can obviously see it and making me feel uncomfortable. But do I expect people to put me under surveillance for that reason? Yeah, I would think so. I would think so. And I'm not even going to fault them for that. I'm going to actually give my online consent. That is totally fine to do that, okay? But whatever the case is, Maria needs to start making some money because I can't stay this way, okay? And I'm taking responsibility for myself. And for people who are watching this video, yes, this is what I'm talking about. Morals. Morals, okay? These people who did what they didn't have any morals, okay? Because they were very narcissistic, but I'm going to talk about the lack of empathy, okay? When I think is important, you can try to teach people empathy, but not everybody has empathy, okay? And I'm aware of this. There are some people who have no empathy, okay? But in order for them to get along in society, meaning like to be able to still be within the weave of having communications and being able to perform business, they need to be able to be taught when they go outside of the line. Like, this one dude, I remember he used to say a bunch of insensitive things, and I remember having to correct him. He's like, oh, thank you. You got to tell me stuff like that. Because he really had no idea of how to behave. He didn't realize that everything that would come out of his mouth was, number one, offensive and unnecessary, and the kind of stuff that can actually cause fights. That's how ignorant this man was. That's how ignorant this man was, okay? And he actually thanked me for telling him, that you're kind of like overstepping boundaries, okay? Because so people need to understand what is right and what is wrong, because we live in a very corrupt society. And no, I'm not a goody two-shoes, you know what I mean? Like, some people think that I'm a little bit too wild for them. This is one of the reasons why I don't fit in with some of the celebrities. These people were sitting here bashing me because they were trying to force me into a life that I fucking would regret anyway, okay? I don't really care what people think of me. Okay, but one thing they do know is that their little competition of proving who was more educated was obviously a fail, and an embarrassing one at that. So I'm going to wrap up this video. Sorry, I just had to vent this Monday morning, because my schedule was a little mixed up. By me having to go to the store, that pushed things back, and it made my mind shift and change. And I also do need to work on different scripts and stuff like that, because I need to make money. I am like pinpoint focused on my issues, okay? And I also think that, by me expressing my feeling, it's very healing for me. Like I said, Christians will gaslight you to death. They will always do everything to maintain that they're innocent. They don't ever want to sit here and say, I'm responsible for that. They don't want to take that sort of accountability. So they allow me to suffer. Okay? I'm tired of your shit. Okay? So I'm picking my stuff up. And no, I don't have to have any respect for your organization. It's unfortunate that so many people have been duped by you, thinking that they have to sacrifice their life to serve you, to serve the devil. And basically what it is like how it's set up is that you basically have to serve the devil to work. Okay, yes, I'm saying it. I do believe that Christianity, as we know it, and I'm not talking about God, I'm not saying anything about God, I'm talking about the Christian structure, how it is, unless it changes, I'm identifying it with the devil, period. Wrapping up this video. I'll be back with another video sometime later. Take care.